Hey everybody. Let me see. Happy day before Thanksgiving. So I'm just watching to see who has joined us, who is joining us. Hey Ashley, how are you? It's good to see you on here. And let's see who else here. All right, great. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Well, early Thanksgiving. Ashley, I don't know if this is the one day of the year that you don't really do anything with food, since you do with food for the rest for the rest of the year. But I just that's what I would recommend anyway. But but I hope that everybody is planning on a good Thanksgiving. I think when it comes to Thanksgiving in business, I I used to be all about Thanksgiving, and it may have had something to do with my kids being little or any number of reasons. But Thanksgiving was really the day of the year I really liked to cook. So I stopped that a little bit after I started my business. I just, Thanksgiving, I appreciate the fact that everybody else does it, but I now understand that my energy is limited. And so this is a day that I actually take as much as possible to rest. So no cooking for me, no cleaning for me. I'm more than happy to take everybody out to Boston Market. No, but really, like I prefer just to hang back and relax and not have to do too much on a day like this. Um, so let's talk. Let me just talk a little bit about the quote of the day. And that is, we all think about our competition in business. We all think about what are our competitors doing. It's part of the research that we do, or at least we should do, getting started, to make sure that we have the same types of things, that while we're not copying, we want to make sure that whoever is already going to their businesses, that they will identify with a similar structure in our businesses. So that's one of the biggest reasons for taking a look at your competitors. But realistically speaking, we're really only competing against ourselves. So the founder and CEO of Mashable, Mashable is pretty awesome. He's absolutely right. We can't control how somebody else is going to perform, what business decisions they're going to make. All we can do is compete against ourselves. So what that means is, when you have analytics on your website, when you have analytics on your social media, the numbers that you're recording are the numbers that you're looking to beat. You're not looking to beat your competitors' numbers. You don't know what those are. But if you started with 25 and then a month later it jumps to 50, if you started with 1,500 and a month later it jumps to 1,575 even, what numbers are you trying to compete against for your own business? This is the fastest way to be able to grow, being your own best competitor by learning through knowledge, through reading. Competing with yourself is the best way to grow. All right. So let's see here. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about, we're going to actually go into the SiteOrigin Page Builder. We're going to go over that today. But I did want to talk about this really awesome caching plugin. It's called WP Rocket, and I had heard about this plugin for a while, and I'm ashamed to say that it took me a really long time to be willing to use it, because like I said before, I don't like paid plugins. I mean, I will when absolutely necessary, but in general, I don't like to pay for plugins if I can get a great plugin for free. But caching is different. So if you don't know what caching is, caching basically holds a version of your website in the browser so that it loads quicker for your visitors. There are a lot of services that do this, and like WP Cache was one of them. Let's see. W3C Cache, are a lot of different ones, and they all work a little bit different. You can see them here. So Total Cache, Super Cache, Hyper Cache. But they didn't fully optimize, and sometimes they would stop things from working on the website. So Here with WP Rocket, it actually does everything different. So it does focus on page caching and preloading, but also the compression. So if you did some of the research and you looked into you looked into the different speed resources that I talked about, then some of the time you'll see that they talk about the gzip compression. They talk about browser caching. They talk about the minification, the deferred JS is JavaScript loading. And all of these different things are things that you can download different plugins for, but they're not as effective as if you were to go in and do it with code. So WP Rocket, it actually, I was working on this huge site. So when I say huge site, I mean there are thousands of posts in that site. So with thousands of posts in that site, the site was primarily built out of images. So if you can imagine a huge site with images that are not optimized, and each post, thousands of posts, has no fewer than 5 to 10 images in them. And the images are all huge. They're not resized. So it is an enormous site, which was also very, very slow. We took it off the server. We rebuilt it, cleaned it up, put it back on the server. We put it back on the server, and the server's the hosting. It was ridiculously slow. So anyway, long story short, we did all of these different things to be able to get it to run faster, and they worked for the most part, but it was still not getting a great speed score, even though it was running a lot faster. So I decided to go ahead and invest in this plugin and see if I liked it. I installed it on the site and checked the site about an hour later, and it had gone from a high D, C, depending on when and how you were checking it, and this is after all the optimization that we had done, to a very high B. Like, incredible difference in the numbers. So I became an absolute lover of this plugin. It's called WP Rocket, and the plugin itself, it's like $39, but they're offering a Black Friday sale, 35% off. I highly recommend this plugin. It's 25 bucks. Definitely worth it. So I can put, let me see. I'll make sure that I save the link and I put it up. I'm actually going to show you it on the site really quickly today, so you have an idea of how many options and how many things that you can change. So let me see. Let me jump over here, and this is where we're going to start the page builder training. But before we do that, I'm going to take you into WP Rocket really quickly. So WP Rocket, as you know, there are a lot of things that you can find either in tools or in settings. So once you have installed WP Rocket, it's not available from the WordPress repository. You have to actually purchase it from WP Rocket. Once you've uploaded it and activated it, it's available in settings. So WP Rocket, and I'm going to open it up in a new tab. So let me show this awesome thing to you. So look at this. Look at all these. Let's go ahead and allow. All right, look at this. So it's now activated. I activated it a little while ago. This is the basic dashboard. Okay, so you can clear the cache, you can purge the cache, start the cache preloading. What I really want you to see are a couple things over here. So a lot of the options are already preset, so you don't really have to do anything. It's kind of like an install and go type of deal. But if you want to go in and make some changes, some of the stuff that you can change are in your media. You can enable lazy load for your images. So somebody's scrolling down the page, the image is only going to load when they get to that part of the page. That helps a lot from a speed perspective, and then you can also do it for iframes and videos. You can uncheck any of these if you need them. For the most part, you don't really need them. These are just things that take up extra space. Let's see here. So that's under media. File optimization. So when you run the gzip and the pingdom, sometimes they'll tell you that they need you to minify the files, the CSS files, the HTML files. the JavaScript file. So you want to be careful when you do this, because doing this can sometimes cause little issues on the site, like the way things work and things like that. But if you do it and everything is fine, you leave it. If you do it and something stops working and then you uncheck it, you clear the cache, it goes right back to what it was. Let me see, the heartbeat. So the heartbeat is how often things save in your backend. So if you're, oh, that sounds kind of funny. So if you're thinking about like autosave posts, that's basically, that's what WordPress considers its heartbeat. It's the automatic processes that are running in the backend. So, so if you want to make your backend run faster, you can control that heartbeat. So if I were to click this, control heartbeat, and then I can reduce the activity in the backend. So you see here it says reducing activity will change heartbeat frequency from 1 hit each minute to 1 hit every 2 minutes. You don't want to disable it altogether, but this does make a difference from a speed perspective in terms of how fast the backend moves. Let me see here, the database. So there is WP Optimize, which is a free database cleaning plugin. It basically goes in and clears out all of your revisions and everything. But if you look at this plugin does it also, which is really cool. So you've just eliminated the need for like 5 plugins with this one. So this is also a little bit more detailed. So post cleanup, you can clean up the revisions, the auto drafts, and trash posts. So we don't always realize that when we're trashing posts or we're revising things, when it says you have hundreds of revisions, that's taking up space in your database. It's causing your site to run slower. So as much as possible, it is important to clean that up. Now, the one negative about that is that if you're in the middle of working on something, you don't want to clean your revisions, because if you clean your revisions and you do need to revert or go back to it and you don't have a backup, you have an issue. So better to make sure that you're really not working on anything when you go through and you do this. But you can do it just by clicking on it. So if I wanted to clean my auto drafts or my trash posts, I could do that and leave my revisions alone. Your spam comments, it'll clean them up. Your transients. So transients are temporary options. They're safe to remove. All right. So your plugins use transient, they use these temporary options. So you can go ahead and clear them out because they generally build up. And again, it's just slowing down your database. Here, same thing, optimize your tables. So it goes in and it takes out the trash and it cleans it up. Now, I will say that before you do this, make sure that you have a backup of your site, because so far I've installed it on I've installed it now on 10 different sites, including my own. And I've done the cleanups. I haven't seen any problems, any issues, but you never know. So make sure your site is backed up before you decide to mess with your database, because once you mess with your database, there's no undo. That's it. So when you're backing up, if you're backing up through like Updraft, make sure you're checking off your database as well. Right? You can also schedule an automatic cleanup. And if you're going to schedule an automatic cleanup, make sure that you're also scheduling an automatic backup. It seems really obvious, but you know, like sometimes, like think through. So if you're scheduling it morning and evening for the backup, or if you're scheduling it in the evening for the backup, don't schedule the cleanup at 6 o'clock if your backup is at 7 o'clock. So just make sure you're paying attention to that. All right, so you would check off whatever you wanted. So like right now, we'll go ahead and we'll do the transients. And then we will optimize. And so it happens pretty quickly. Some of the stuff can take longer depending on what you're doing. Like sometimes the revisions and stuff take longer, but in general, it goes just as quick. Tells you about your server, all sorts of stuff. The theme that you're using. So as you can see, I'm using Virtue Premium, of course. And so Virtue actually has, they have another thing that they came out with not too long ago that I've so far, I just started playing around with it, using it, but I'm also really impressed with it. So it may be another theme that I go into in the future, and it may be another theme that I offer as part of this program in case, for whatever reason, Virtue Premium didn't meet all of your needs. I noticed that their new theme is even more updated, has a lot of great options in it. So we'll see how we get into that, but I'm assuming that that's what I'll probably do. To make sure that you guys always have the best of what it is that I'm recommending. So all of this stuff, I don't really have to clear the cache, but I will. And just as a reminder, so I'm going to right now go into themes. This is not part of the builder, but this is really, really important. So going into the themes, you can see I don't have a child theme on here, right? But I'm also not doing anything with this theme right now. This site was only built to be able to teach. There's nothing special about it. So I can update the site, right? You want to make sure that your theme is always updated. What I should have on here, the right thing to have on here, is the child theme. Ashley, do you have a child theme on your site right now? I don't recall. Did you install that already? And do you want me to turn on the, hold on, let me unmute it. Let's just talk. Do you have the child theme installed through the child theme configurator, or do you want me to do that?
Yes, I have it, if you'll check it. Sorry about the background noise. I'm babysitting right now.
No, you're fine. All right, so then I won't go into it on here. I'll cover it in a future one. Then I'll put you back on mute so that you can listen. Then I won't go into it right now, but generally you do want to make sure that you're using the child theme configurator in order to create the updated version. And then when you have your child theme, you can actually, usually the child theme, it doesn't have your site picture on it, but I can show you how to install your site picture into your child theme. It's the file system, so we won't cover it this week. We can cover it next week. But basically, instead of it saying Virtue Premium or Virtue Premium Child, it's going to actually have a picture of your site, which is really cool. But once you have the child theme, you can feel free to update this one. So I'm going to update it now because I don't have anything custom in here. Nothing said, it's fine to update. But in general, you can feel free to update it so long as you have your child theme. So I know that I've said that like 5 times, but I cannot say that enough, because we have had instances where clients would switch their theme out and start working on stuff themselves like a long time after we did it. And then, of course, they wouldn't have a child theme with the new theme, and then they would go to update it. And next thing you know, all of their changes would be overwritten. So, I cannot stress it enough. So the other thing you want to make absolutely sure that you do, also from a database perspective, is all these themes need to go. I was going to do it, but I decided to wait just to make sure it was just part of the process. So you do not need any theme in here other than your parent theme and your child theme. So we're going to delete all of these. Extra themes are security risks. They often need to be updated as extra files, different ways that people can get into your site, and we want to avoid that. All right, so I'm going to jump into the page builder now. So with the page builder, whenever you install the SiteOrigin Page Builder, now I recommend SiteOrigin Page Builder. It's the one that Virtue now comes with, but it's the most lightweight page builder and most SEO friendly. So it doesn't disrupt the speed, it doesn't disrupt the efficiency. It's many, many, many times more lightweight than the majority of the page builders. So we want to make sure that this is the one that you're using. I haven't found one that's really easier to use than this one or loads faster than this one. So, but there are a ton of them that I've used, from WP Bakery to the Avada to Divi Page Builder, the Beaver Press Builder. There's so many different ones out there to be able to use that are located right in the WordPress repository. So if you don't like this one, feel free to switch over, but I definitely don't recommend it. So here we go. So this is a test page. Like, there's nothing in here right now. Some of the other pages, they have text, but I decided to start the page itself without. So when you first come in, and I know actually I'm sure you've already started playing with this, but I'm just going to start from the ground up, and then I'll get into the more exciting things that it has to offer. So let's see here. So when you first bring it up, it always shows the visual builder. There is an option setting here. So if you go into settings again and page builder, we'll open it up in another tab. I don't know if you knew that this was in here, but page builder actually has its own settings. So under general, you can default to page builder interface. So it doesn't start in the visual or the text setting. It automatically opens up as a page builder interface, which can be easier sometimes. So you don't have to actually set that up or start typing. You can enable it for pages and posts. If you have custom post types, it'll recognize the custom post types, and you can enable it for those too. I don't have any on here, so it doesn't show it right now. But in the settings, you have some stuff that would make sense to play around with, and some stuff you just leave it alone as. But for example, for the widget titles, so the widget titles, we can't modify those once we open up the widgets, right? But this is where you modify them. So here, you can see that they're all going to show as H3. But if you wanted them to be bigger or you wanted them to be smaller, then this is where you would edit it into settings in the page builder settings. Let's see, instant open widget. So this one I like because it'll open up that widget as soon as you add it to a page. My pet peeve, what I don't like, is the fact that once I add it to a page, sometimes I have to look for it. So by setting it so it opens it automatically, it's much easier to find. So there's also layout, not a whole lot that you have to do here. If you didn't want it to be responsive, it's not, but what happens with the responsive layout is if whatever you have on the right side, think of it as stacks. So it doesn't show up the same width if you have like a two-part module. If it's cut in two, then the second part is going to go underneath. So the top will stack, if that makes sense. You can turn off the responsive layout. Don't recommend that. And you can use a separate tablet layout. So if it detects that it's a tablet, it's going to do it a little bit different. You can make changes to all of these. These is pretty much, it's automatically set in there always. But if you want less of a gutter between the rows, or you need to modify the mobile width, everything here is under settings, which makes it really nice because that way when you publish your site, or if you're working with it and something's a little bit off, you can come into the settings and modify it. It makes it a lot easier when you're building your site out in general, because one of the things with the responsive sites are you can't, if you're not using a page builder, you can't always control what's going to appear first, second, third, and things can get jumbled up on mobile. But by doing it this way, it allows things to be broken up on mobile a lot better. And so if you have to go in and make certain edits just for mobile or modify certain things, it's a much cleaner and easier interface, and only to work on that specific area versus having to modify the whole page and have everything get imbalanced again. Let's see, a teaser. So you can enable this if you kind of want to drive yourself nuts. I've never purchased a SiteOrigin Premium myself, but if you want them to bother you about it every time you open it up, you go ahead and check this off to upgrade the teaser. Now, it's interesting to me that they don't upgrade it. They don't do that automatically and have you uncheck it, that you have to check it. So it's one of the things that I actually like about them. So let's see, animation, because you know all the different things you can animate, so you can change that as well if you need it to be longer or shorter. All right. So now let's move into the page editor itself. So this is a test page. It didn't default yet because I checked off that setting afterwards. So let's go ahead and go into Page Builder. So once you're in here, you're in the page builder interface, right? Let's close that. So I'm going to turn this off right here because I don't want to be distracted. So I'm going to go to screen options. You see, these are all the things that you can turn off or turn on. So I'm going to turn off and turn off. Let's see here, page attributes. Yeah, that's fine. We'll leave that right. All right. So back to page builder. So page builder interface. This is where you add the widgets, you add the rows, pre-built layouts, history, and live editor. So history works very similar to, and of course it doesn't show here because we haven't published anything yet, but here when they talk about revisions, it works it works in a similar way. Live Editor allows you to view it from the front end and work on it from the front end. You can't delete stuff that way, and depending on how fast your browser is, it can go a little bit slower, but usually it's really effective. So you can look at your site while you are editing. So we'll do that in the post in a few minutes. Layouts. So these layouts are either pre-built. You can either clone existing pages, clone existing posts, or you can use the layout directory. So if you want to enable the layout directory, you see all these layouts that you can use just by default. And we will add those in a moment. So to add a widget, you can either add the widget first or you can add the row first. So if you want to control how much space the widget takes up, you can start by adding the row, and you can either add more this way, or you can choose the size that you want. So either way, it's essentially the same thing, except here, if you do it this way, then you're actually typing in how big you want them to be. So like for me, I want that to be 25%. And this to be 25%. You see how everything is just, everything is updating. All of them are updating as I'm adding it. So, but for, so right here, I put 4 columns with a ratio of halves. So obviously, like as I was updating stuff, it was making edits. But if I wanted them to be even, halves, hectagon. So you can see how you can mess around with this. More often than not, though, we've always used even. So now let's go ahead. So before I set this, let me just walk you through this area. So you have 2 different ways to be able to edit your areas. The rows are the first way to edit. So if you ever make changes and you can't figure out how to find the changes that you made, chances are you made it in the row versus in the widget, if that makes sense. So this is the row, right? So if we're going to add a row, the row is right here. It doesn't have any widgets in it right now. But here, if I go to edit, and then it shows these options. So I can change the design. I can change the layout. Attributes you won't ever need to mess with, really, unless you are familiar with CSS styles and codes. For the most part, you won't need to. I believe you can turn it off in the settings, but also you may want it there in case you did want to make edits to it in the future. We have very rarely needed to use that. Almost everything we've been able to do using layout and color. So the layout of the row versus the widget differs a little bit because the row is controlling what it looks like in relation to the page itself. So what I mean by that is that if you're coming down here to row layout, standard is standard width, right? Well, what happens if I need it to be full width or full width stretched or full width stretched padded? So all of these different options stretch it out further and further across the page. We usually use standard to keep it inside the page, or full width to keep it across the page. So let me do this. So standard row layout. And then I'm not going to use a background image. I'm just going to choose a background color. Let's choose green. So let me update this. And then we're going to see. And the cache is working really well. So it's actually making it so we can't see the site. All right, hold on one second. This is why there is a setting in there to be able to work on your site and see it with a clear cache. But let me go ahead and turn off Rocket Cache because obviously I'm doing anything I can to make this difficult. All right, deactivate. Temporary deactivation. All right, let's refresh and see. See if I can. All right, let's see if it's gonna work in a minute. All right, so what did we do here? We made the background color green. And so what will happen on the page is right now on the page it's default, which means that it has the sidebar on it, but I actually don't want a sidebar. I want a full width template. So let's update that so that I can show this to you. So if you have this and you activate the full width design without the full width template, it will actually go right through the sidebar. No, you don't need to deactivate it. There's actually a setting in WP Cache WP Rocket. I'm playing around with it still to make sure. But it seems what they recommend is that if you don't have the setting enabled, that you open it in an incognito browser to be able to see it. But Chrome's incognito is really weird. Chrome's incognito seems to hold the cache still for a certain amount of time, which is really odd. So usually for that type of thing, I work in Firefox. I clearly did not think through this completely this evening before I think I just got excited and decided to show you the plugin. But let's see if, let's see here. All right, we're getting there, we're getting there. All right, so I'm gonna update again. And then we're going to start sticking stuff in there and see if that helps to refresh it faster. But inside the WP cache, well, let me open up. Let me open up the Rocket cache again. So we'll go ahead and we'll check that off as long as we're doing this together. Yes, yes, I'm allowed on this page. All right, there we go. So what I can do is when we turn WP Rocket back on, I will show you that one setting. So here we're going to add a widget. So anytime you add a plugin to WordPress, any widgets that are available will show up here. So you can see here where it'll say widgets bundle, page builder widgets, WordPress widgets. So you can click here to have it show specific like theme widgets. But if you have like short code builder or any of the other widgets, they will all show here under all. So I like, personally, I like the Virtue. Let's see. Virtue image, and then there's SiteOrigin. So SiteOrigin and Virtue stuff works pretty much the same. We'll go ahead and we'll install the bundle. There are a additional accessibility areas for some of this stuff. So by adding the additional options to the site builder, it opens up a whole lot of different widgets for you to be able to use. So let's try this again. And editing the test page. All right, there we go. So let's go ahead and try that again. So that was the site origin editor. So the site origin editor you can actually use for almost everything. You can use it for images, you can use it for text, you can use it for coding. There are other widgets that you can use if you're not going to add text in. But sometimes the widgets don't work quite the way we want them to work, or in the way that we had it in our mind for them to work, and they don't have all the features, in which case it's easier just to jump in and use the site origin editor. So for ease of use later on, rather than saying site origin editor, say you have a long list of items that you're using on your page, you can actually title it. So we don't have anything specific that's going in here right now, but I can put test item, and it doesn't show up anywhere but on the back end. So if you have a list of items and you have your slider, you have this, you have that, then by looking at the title of what the actual item is, it's going to be easier and faster for you to be able to get into the area that you were trying to get into. And for the title that the users will actually see, that's right here. So if you recall the settings, these are all going to be H3. But we can modify that in the settings to make them H2 or H4, but H3 is pretty standard. So test item and test item 2, because I am super original this evening. So this is text. And here are the settings for this particular module. So we can save that and just put done. So whether it's 50-50 or whether you have 5 different items in here, each one, other than the row, it's going to have its own settings. All right. So right now we have test item 2. So opening this back up, if you look at layout, you can't change the row here. So that's where the layout is the options in the widgets are gonna change a little bit different, but you have almost the same number of features. So you can change the background color or add a background image. So far working with this, I don't recommend changing the background image of a single item. If you want to change a background image, like put say there's like a checkerboard or some other texture or whatever that you want to add it to the entire row when you can, because otherwise it ends up looking a little clunky and a little blocky. But there are different ways that you can use this to create a design that has different colors that's really visual and attractive. But just you want to play around with it. But so I would usually use a background color for these versus using a background image for these. Background image, I would definitely say for the whole row. But let's see, so background, no, we don't want the background image, background color, let's see, maybe another one green, let's make this one purple. You can change the border, the font color. So the font color is going to change different aspects of it. If you have the font set this way, the color set this way, this is not always going to override that. All right, let's see if this cache is working now. Shoot, and it's not. Okay. Let me see if I can see it. Oh, preview. Here we go. All right, so this is absolutely beautiful. This is what I was going for, and I just can't imagine it ever looking any better. So obviously this is not what we're going for here, but you can see how the row and then the widget itself, these have two different colors. So let's do this. Let's go back into the row now that we can actually see it. Edit row. 50/50, nothing has changed with there. But let's, instead of standard, because if you can see standard, it stops right inside the area of the site. So I don't want to do that. I want to make it full width. Now let's try this here. So you see how it goes all the way across now? Now the item, so here's the deal. If you have full width, the row will stretch full width, but the content will stay inside. So these two boxes are going to stay inside this area. If you use full width stretch, it's going to go outside of that area. So I have never personally found a reason to use full width stretched. And I've never seen one of our sites come out like that, but it doesn't, more often than not, we will always use just full width. So you may end up finding a purpose for this, you may not. Sometimes I guess images or something else, but I generally recommend just full width. So again, so for that background, for that green, this is what we're looking at. Now, let me put it back to sign, center top, layout. So I'll leave it as full width. And I'll duplicate this item over here. So you see how easy that was? You literally just hover and duplicate. Hover and duplicate. You can do as many as times as you want. If you were to add another row, you can duplicate it and just drag and drop. So really easy to use. And you can see how quickly it moves. But we don't need all this, so I'll delete that. All right. So let me update this. And now, on the test page, I'm going to refresh this, reload it. On the test page, you see how at the bottom here, you have space, but at the top not. There's no margin, there's no padding, there's nothing like that. So what you can do this one of two ways, right? Edit. You can go in here and add margin or padding here, but that's basically going to bring up the purple color, all right, because it's going to make that bigger. So usually you'll want to go into the row and you're going to want to add margin. You can add more gutters. You can add bottom margin. Let me see. All right, let's add 20 pixels and see what that does. Yeah, pretty close. So what we did here is we added padding. So padding we added in between the top of it and the module. So it actually looks like it's a little bit less at the bottom, so I'd probably want it to be even. So I would maybe do, let me try 18 instead. So again, went to row, layout, padding top. Let's try 16. Yeah, pretty close. All right. So I haven't changed. So you can see here how there's no padding in here. There's nothing around the text. So this is where you would want to add padding into the actual widget if you wanted to add padding in between the text and the information inside these boxes and the outer edge of the box, because right now, as you can see, it's really narrow. So some of the other settings, so that's the easiest way to do it. That's the easiest walkthrough. You don't need to do a whole lot with the other areas, with the other items. Now, if you wanted to, all right, you can add an image and then mess around with the images, cover them, center them. You can add a border just to the top. So let's add a 5-pixel border and let's make it orange. You can add a border on the bottom. So let's add 10-pixel border on the bottom, and let's make that blue. I'm feeling very colorful tonight. Row separator. So let's do these one at a time. So you can see the different pixels. So here, 10 pixels. Here was 5 pixels. So you can do this for every single row. And you can use colors like much simpler colors like the F2. So if you use color codes versus choosing a color, F2 is that off-white color, and so we'll add that. F2, the off-white color is what you'll see a lot to break stuff up. You can see it there, but just barely. Adds a little bit of definition. So why don't I change that purple out? Edit. And F2. So you can see the color changed. It's a really nice creamy off-white color. So actually, before we get off, I'm going to open up WP Rocket again so I can show you where that setting is that shows you, that allows you to work inside of WordPress without the cache. And then also on GoDaddy, we also have this flush cache setting here that we can use. But if you're not on GoDaddy, then you want to make sure that you have the WP, the cache, basically it's disabled while you're working on the site. So I have a couple more things that I was going to show you in this, but let me, if you don't mind. So actually, I can open it up either through voice or unless you want to text. I know that you were interested in learning more about Site Builder. Is there something specific that you wanted to understand, or do you want me just to continue showing the different pieces and parts of it? Because this, for the most part, outside of different modules, like we could discuss this at every single Wednesday evening for the next couple of weeks because they have so many different features. But in a nutshell, this is exactly how you use it, and those are the simplest settings to be able to use. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I'm asking because I don't know if you're in the middle of something over there.
Oh, it's okay. They're watching a movie right now.
Okay.
You just may hear the movie, but it's keeping the kids quiet. So
Awesome. So what were your questions from a page builder perspective? What was it that you wanted to learn how to do?
Well, like you said, I already had started playing around with it and just making certain things look like the home page. I added the search bar at the top, and then I have my areas, my recipe categories, and then I wanted to add a recent post. Well, I added it, but it comes up in words. I want to add like a picture and then some options on the side in writing.
Okay. So with recent posts, did you try all of the, so let me delete these two test items out. So there are a couple ways that this can be done. So first is looking at the different widgets that are available. Not all of them that are just part of this will do exactly what you're saying. So you want to show like recent posts or related posts, or what type of posts are you trying to show?
Like recent posts, I want one pretty good sized picture of the most recent post and a description of what it is, and then let's say 3 other recent posts, just the words.
Got it.
So, okay.
Okay. All right, so the page builder by itself is probably not going to do that. They have different ones that you can use,
Okay.
but none of them. This is where you would pull in another plugin to be able to do this, and this is why it can get so tricky when it comes to plugins because you can end up adding them for every type of functionality to make sure that it works and looks exactly the way that you want it to work and look. Once you add the plugin, you can bring it in here. But so for that wasn't something that you wanted to use content views for?
I didn't know I could use concept views for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Okay.
let me see. So for content views, let me see. So this is the way that you do. Let me take you to so for the most recent, so this takes 2 views. All right. So
Okay.
let me show you.
So content views can be integrated with Site Builder. Is that how it works?
Absolutely. Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. The only difference, the only there we go. The only difference is you'll use short codes. So you'll pull up like the text editor and you'll just toss the short code in there. And then not only that, but did you know that you can enable content views to basically display standard for the rest of your site? So if you create say you create one view and it's a blog view and you want all of your blogs to look just like that,
Mm-hmm.
rather than having to go to every page or figure out, because you have your archives and your archives pages, you can't modify those. That's just what the site is set at, right?
Okay.
Content views, you can enable every post on your site that doesn't already have a different view to look like you set it in content views. I'll,
Okay.
so this is an example of how you can use content views for the bigger post and then the smaller posts. But basically, you have one view up top, which is just a single view. All right. So this is exactly how I want the top to show. Underneath that, you'll have a second view that's pulling in the second post the way that you want it, so that you have full control between the two of them. So these right here are 2 different views.
Okay.
Right. So when it comes to the posts themselves, so all of these over here, these are all post pages. So when you're looking at a post page, let's just go to New Hampshire. I should probably go to Texas. They're going to be a lot more, a lot more posting. So for New Hampshire, so here is it's an image issue that she's having, but so what we did is we set all of the posts we want on the entire site. We want them to look like this. So we created the view to look with this headline with the date there. When you actually click through on the post, it's I'll show you. So this is a content view, but it's across the whole site. Like we didn't actually place the view on every single page. No matter what category you go to, this is the way it's going to look.
So it's kind of like just like a, I don't know the word right now.
It resets it as a default, basically. So
Okay.
the default for your site goes to whatever view you set it at. So let me actually just I can show you. So this is where one of the ways that content views is actually really helpful. It's not always perfect. Like you can through coding, but the basic views, you have a lot of options, but it's not always perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you get it to the point that you're happy with it, you can. So over here, let's see, was in the tools. Sorry, it's been a bit since I've gone into the content view settings. Yeah, okay, so it's just here. So you see here it says replace layout.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so when you click replace layout, you can basically, for standard archives, for categories, or single posts, you can choose any content view that you have created, to basically cover that entire section. So every single post on her site that's a single post will look exactly the way that we want it to look. Same thing with the categories. So whether it's authors, regardless of what is showing, what is displaying, you can create a view for it and just replace it by default on the site.
Do you have anything under one of those views?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all of them. Well, hold on.
Well, I just wanted to see, like, is it a code that's under select view, or?
Oh, no, it's, so the view, hold on. So you see here the blog single post.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the name of the one. Here, look at all views. So in the view, the content views, we create the view first. So these are all the views that we have for the site, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you see how it says blog single post? So
Okay.
for blog
Okay.
single post, yeah, so that's based, so what we did here, this is what we wanted every blog post to look like. So when you are, look at this site again, because on her, the blogs themselves, we didn't want it to default to the WordPress standard view. Like, we wanted to make sure that we could control the colors. So the layout here, these layouts are all hers. These are not our layouts, so that's okay. So when you're scrolling down, you see that the headline is still exactly the way that we wanted it. She wanted the categories at the bottom, so we set it so that the categories were at the very bottom. Which are right here. But in terms of this, these are separate plugins and separate functionality. Unfortunately, there isn't a, like there isn't a way to be able to get everything just to appear. Like, almost everything is either code or plugin.
Why it takes so long?
That's one of the things that takes so long. But the good thing is that if you're doing it slowly and you're adding stuff in slowly, then in the end, after you work on it for a bit, it looks exactly the way that you want it. But so if we took this view off of single posts, then you would see just a WordPress standard view. But by being able to do the replace layout, this solves a bunch of problems. You can turn off comments, turn them on, so many additional options you have. And on the archive pages, so the archive pages are the category pages themselves. But usually when you click on the category pages, you can't edit those. You can't do anything with the category pages. They just are. So this, unless you go to like your theme settings and add what you want to use for your blog pages. But this way you can control the look and the feel and the comments and everything that's on those pages. So that's one of the benefits of content views.
Okay, I like that.
I like it too. It made it really, really helpful, especially when you're doing something. Like you're saying, where the one image is bigger and then the other images are like a smaller size. And
Mm-hmm.
what you want to do, and let me show you. I'll go in here. So what you want to do is make sure that it's offset. So here are, let me see, home current posts. Which one is it? So opening this one up, you want to do something called offsetting the post. Have you seen those? Have you seen that, to offset the post?
I probably didn't know what it was.
So when you have two different views and you're using them like that, the upper post is going to be the most recent post, right? But then
Mm-hmm.
when you have the list of posts underneath of it, you don't want it showing the same post. So you want to make sure that whatever number you stop at for that top post, so if you're showing just one, then you want to make sure that the second view that you're showing there has an offset of 1. So it's always showing the second most recent post.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Because otherwise you're going to have the upper and lower that are showing the same thing, and we don't want that.
Okay.
Let's see. So yeah, so then you have the upper and the lower. So this is her newest post. This is the post that was up there before, and then when this one came out, I pushed that one down.
Okay. Cool.
Let's
Can
see.
you choose to make it vertical or horizontal, the picture, the top picture?
Yeah, absolutely. You can do anything you want to. So in
Okay.
the content, let me see. All right, I don't have content views on here yet, but let me. So did you end up getting the premium version of content views or just the basic?
I have the premium.
Okay. So in the settings, in the view settings on there, it asks you how you want to display the picture. So if you go into each one of them, you have the option to display the picture to the left or above, and then you have an option to display the picture in a certain height and width. It gives you a couple of preset options, and then it has a custom setting. So if you want to display it vertically instead, you'll have to, like, all the images then should be uploaded vertically. But you can absolutely do that.
Okay.
And what I wanted to, so I'm going to turn Rocket Cache back on now. Did you have any other questions right now about Site Builder that I can answer?
Can you show me how to integrate content views, or is that too lengthy?
No, that's fine.
Like
Oh,
just the first step.
yeah. So have you, I know that you downloaded it a little while ago. Have you played around with it? And I mean, I know you played around with it a little bit, but have you played around with it a lot or
I have it set up for all of my pages.
okay. All right, that's good.
So it's I don't know, it was a little difficult for me. It's like it's simple, but there's a lot of parts in there,
That's
especially like getting to the customization of what size you want each photo to be and all of that type of stuff, padding and stuff. So,
So a lot of this stuff is pretty much preset, but the good thing though is that once you replace those views, like you only have to do it once. You don't have.
hmm
So in the free version, which is what we have here, it's just filter settings or display settings. But in order to integrate it, the integrated into all of the pages the way that I showed you, or integrated into Page Builder.
hmm
Okay.
it's a page builder.
So to integrate it into Page Builder, all you do is grab the short code.
Okay.
That's it. So you grab the short code. You can grab the PHP code too, but then that's in your theme settings. But then you just go into the pages and you add the widget. So I don't like to add like the full visual widget for this. I just add a text widget because it's really light. The full visual widget has so many settings in it that it kind of bloats your site if you're just using it for the short code. You just add the short code in, you update, and then ta-da.
Okay. Awesome.
So as you can see, like the background, so look at the content. So the content stops, let me do this. Let me do a whole edit row. Let me do full width. So just by dropping a short code in there, I automatically, you have the background of the page, of that area, which we set to green.
hmm
You have the padding at the top, which we added. So otherwise, this would be all the way up at the top. So we added a little bit of padding, and then you have the six posts that are there, as we didn't do anything with the content view. But it's just that simple to be able to drop in. On the premium version, the read more, like you can control the colors and stuff of the buttons, or you can just have it be a link.
Okay. Now I'll play around with that some more. I mean, even in the regular content views, I had to go to YouTube and say, okay, how do I do this part? And then I had to go into the instructions as well.
So why don't I? All right. So this week I covered Page Builder a little bit, like not,
hmm
like I showed the basics of Page Builder. Do you want me to install the premium version of Content Views and show that next week? And so that way you can ask questions and I can show you how to do it, or I can go through each section and explain what everything means.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. All
If
right.
you You can see I've played around with it. Even on the home page, I've kind of set it up the home page how I want it, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't look the way I want it to. But since you showed me about how I can add the short code, then I can start to work with that part.
So why doesn't it look the way that you want it? Is it that the page doesn't look the way you want it to look, or the view doesn't look the way you want it to look?
The view doesn't, because I didn't have the content views to have a picture in there. It's just words, a list of words.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
All right. No, so you want to make sure that inside the content view, I think I have it open.
I just didn't add content views into the page builder.
Yeah, so you add the short code to the page builder, but the image settings are under display. So when you go to display, this has fewer settings than what you have. But here
Hmm.
you see where it says field setting, you can show the thumbnail. So when you show the thumbnail, you have an option here to choose the different size. Here you will have a custom setting in yours, but here we don't. So you can either turn it on or turn it off. So we'll show the title. But the other thing that you can do is on the, let me see, do it here. I'm so spoiled. I'm so used to the premium version. So on the premium version, you can, have you seen that you can drag these, that you can drag and drop them?
I didn't know that, but I've checked and unchecked all in this section.
Or get it to get it to get the image in there and to get it perfect, but you can change where things are. So here it says show thumbnail, show title, show content, and show meta descriptions, right? Well, say you wanted the title, for whatever reason, you wanted the thumbnail to be below the content. So on the premium version, you can actually take show thumbnail and you can bring it down to below show content. And so you can actually drag and drop how these are, where these are located on the inside the post.
Okay. Did
So
not know that.
yeah, it's a secret. They don't they don't. I found it by accident. So let me see. And on yours also for the read more, it says, it'll say make a link instead of a button. So you can click that off as well. Make sure that if you have several different, if you have a lot of different articles, make sure that you're using the pagination. Have you started using the pagination yet?
No.
Okay, so the pagination is really cool because that's what allows additional posts to appear, or that's what puts the numbers on the bottom of the page, so they can actually see everything right there. So so when they get to, so say they scroll to the bottom of your, if they scroll to the bottom of your page and you have 5 posts, do you load all of your posts onto that page then, I guess? You let all of them load? Is that usually how you do it? Like if you have 20 posts, right?
Hmm.
Do you put all those 20 posts on the page for the archives, or you just put a couple?
Just a couple.
So on the archive pages, on the pages that are going to contain all of your posts, usually you'll limit it to like 10 per page, and then you turn on pagination. And what this does is it allows all of your posts to be there, but at the bottom you click through. So you get to the bottom, you get to the first 5, and then you click page 2, and it opens up in that section. So for example, right here, this pagination allows all of her sites, or as many posts as you want to load, but it speeds the site up because there aren't as many loading, because she has hundreds of them. So if we were to go to the very last one, you can see there are 192 pages, right?
Okay, no, I do have this because I have a static page,
Uh-huh.
but it still loads several posts before it gets to that.
Okay. All right. Well, this is a setting that you can enable, and you can also turn on the other. So here is a numbered pagination, but you can also make it so on yours so that it keeps loading. And
Okay.
when it keeps loading, instead of the numbers, when they get to the bottom, they can keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, but it's only going to load a certain number of posts at a time, which controls the speed on the site.
Okay.
All right. But
That's helpful.
and I'll spend more time. So I'll make sure that the premium version is enabled next week. And then I'll spend some time going over all the different settings. And what would be really helpful, I think, for you would be is if you have a list of questions that I can potentially answer right there. We can just work whatever questions you have out together. I'll do like a really brief overview
Hmm.
of the premium stuff, and then we can jump into specific questions that you have so it's more beneficial for you.
Okay, that'll be awesome.
All
And
right.
I'll play around with it some more this week as well. And like you said, it's simple to use, but there's so many different parts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, I've mastered this part.
That that's exactly why it's the time that it takes to learn this stuff, which is why when you go to a web developer, it costs a lot because they spend a lot of time learning how to use every aspect of all of these different softwares to be able to make sure that they make your site awesome, right?
Hmm.
But when it comes to you having to do it, turns into like 10 hours, 15 hours, and there's some frustration in there because the way that you want it to look, it doesn't just happen like that. It does take time. But when you are done with your site, it's going to be amazing. I know it is with how much time you're spending on it. And
I look forward to it.
I know, and I'm looking for when you get to the end. I'm looking forward to I'm gonna migrate it for you myself. I'm gonna get it onto your server myself, so that it's up and
Easy.
running, ready to go. So just make a list of your questions for next week, and then I'll make sure that we work on content views, and I'll probably jump in and do. You know what? Let me reactivate that plugin actually. Let me reactivate that now and show you where that is. So I haven't tested this one yet from the turning off the cache dashboard, but I did see where. Let me go. Sorry, I can't think and talk at the same time. All right, let me see. Database. You see here it says you have not activated logged in user cache. Use a
Hmm.
private browser to check your website speed and visual appearance. So this is where I believe that by turning this on in the dashboard, it's going to allow you to check it without having to go, but I haven't actually done it myself to where I've seen that actually works. So I'll do it and I'll show you where it is.
Okay.
And then I'll test it out this week. See if I can find it here. Tools. I can't even, I remember I saw it earlier, but I can't find it now. Inside one of these, it's let me see. It does say
I've
turn.
never heard of this one.
I found it by accident through when I was looking up site speed stuff. Here we go. Enable caching for logged in WordPress users.
Okay.
Um, under cache. So I found it when I was looking up site speed and different plugins
Hmm.
to reduce cache because WordPress will sometimes restrict certain plugins, certain cache plugins, and so that had happened to one of our sites. It restricted one that was older, and I guess the plugin was having issues. So when they did that, the site stopped loading effectively because the site itself was so heavy. So I was looking for a cache plugin, and this one kept popping up in a lot of different places. And so I started looking at it, but I was like, it's $39. I don't know if I want to do that.
Hmm.
But again, I absolutely love it. Like I love the interface. So far, I've had no issues with it. So
Okay.
and anything that allows you to cut down the number of plugins you use between the part that I didn't show, which I was actually going to show next week, is Imagify. It works with WP Rocket, and
Mm-hmm.
you get a certain amount of space for free, but it's basically a much, much better image compressor than Smush It or any of the others. It's fantastic. It's free. They give you a certain amount of optimization free a month, and then anything more than that you pay for it. It's like $5. But otherwise, you just wait until the next month comes, and then you keep optimizing it, and it crushes your images. It's awesome. It's really, really great. And so you install it, and then you grab your API key, you drop it in, and I found it to be really, really efficient. So if you think of like the how many plugins you get rid of by using this one, you get rid of the lazy load, you get rid of the image optimizer, you get rid of the database optimizer, all sorts of stuff with this one plugin.
Okay. I had the optimizer for the pictures and the cache, and that was it.
Mm-hmm. So try, so if you do decide to get WP Rocket, let me know, try it, let me know what you think, and connect with me. I have a way for you to test it. So connect with me through Facebook, and maybe I can have you test it, but on your site, because I think that once you start using it, I think that you'll like it.
Okay.
All right.
I'm interested in it. So we have 4 days to purchase it.
That's what it said. Yeah, for
Mhm.
$25. I think it said for that was their Black Friday special.
Yeah, that's not bad, especially if it works that quickly.
Yeah, and there's no setup on it. Like when you install it, it sets itself up. It lets you know that it's ready, and you can go in and modify any of the settings that you want. But it's as soon as you install it, 5 minutes later, there's a huge difference.
Okay. Yeah, I sure will.
All right, sounds good. Well, I hope you have an awesome Thanksgiving, and
You too.
I will be here next Wednesday, and I'm sure I'll be on way before then. So let me know if you need anything, and I'll make sure that I'm ready with content views for next week.
Okay, and I left you a message about active campaign.
I put it. Oh, I didn't see. You left me a message after I put the note on there.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Excellent. I'll jump on and I'll take a look at that. And if you send through your questions ahead of time, then I'll be ready to address all of them. So we don't waste time me figuring out how to do something in case it's not something that I'm used to doing.
Okay.
All right.
Excellent.
Sounds good. All right. I will talk to you next week, but message me if you need anything.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good night.
Good night. Bye.